So today we're going to talk about feedback and why is it relevant to me, or why is it relevant to you, rather. There was a Indian mystic called Kabir Das in the 15th century, and he came up with this beautiful quote, which goes like "Nindak niere rakhiye, angan kuti chavaye, bin pani sabun bina nirmal kare suhai." So what it actually means is, if you were to translate it into English, it means that keep your critics as close as possible to you, as they have the power to cleanse you without water or soap. And this is really a profound statement in the context of people who are on the spiritual path. There is no better person to provide this criticism or to provide this feedback than the guru. And it is incredibly important that when a person is in the ambit of a guru, they are completely open, completely trusting to receive that feedback and to transform themselves. So the other part of this also is that generally there are people always providing feedback, and if one were to refine themselves or to correct the course of action that they're on or the path that they're on, they need to be open to receiving feedback. What you do with that feedback is obviously your choice, but there are a number of people who are providing feedback to us, and hence it is really important what is the intention of those people that are providing feedback. This is important because some people potentially are there to provide feedback because they want to help you. They generally want to help you change, help you transform, and they're interested in your personal growth, your personal well-being. The second part of this also is there are people who may be upset either with you or someone else, and they want to download their emotions. So that could be one of the reasons why they want to provide you feedback, or they want to provide they want to critique you or provide criticism. And there could also be another reason wherein people feel that there is a complex, could be an inferiority complex, and in which case they want to put you down, they want to provide feedback. Usually that goes in the sense of criticism. And there are so the bigger question around this is, what is the process that a person goes through when they're providing feedback? There are 4 key steps, and why this is important is because it is important to understand how people are going about providing feedback, and the different challenges with that process. Once you understand that, then it is much easier to discern or discriminate whether the feedback is really relevant to you or not. So the first thing that happens is, in the process of providing feedback, people are really providing that feedback based on their personal values and beliefs, or their indoctrinations, or their conditioning. So that is a very important factor to remember, especially those people who are on the path of knowledge. They would understand and know that all that appears is an illusion, and the perspectives that a person has are, they may be their truth, but that is truth is really arbitrary and subjective. So when a person is providing that feedback, they are providing that from their own point of view, and they're comparing what you have done or what you are doing against that belief system, against those values. So this context is really important, and they then take that, do that comparison, and they perform an impact assessment. That impact assessment is really trying to understand whether what you have done or what you have said is impacting them in any way or not. Now, generally, unbiased feedback is really has no impact on the person. But in most cases, when a person is providing feedback, there is generally some sort of a impact to that person, and that is really important to discern and discriminate, because the bigger the impact, the more loaded their feedback will be, either in a positive sense or in a negative sense. So the third piece is, which is the intent behind the feedback. That intent is largely a factor of the impact that the person has had. If there's virtually no impact on that person, the intent is going to be neutral. If there's a positive impact, the intent is generally going to be positive, and if there's negative intent, the intent will be negative. That intent then results in action, and that action is really the choice of words they use in communicating that feedback. The more bigger the impact, and let's say someone's got a huge amount of pain, then the choice of words they might use might be quite emotive. For instance, an example might be, you meet a person who has been really who has a strong faith in the spiritual in religious scriptures that they have been following for the last 20 odd years, and you walk up to them and basically say that all these scriptures, all the written words, are really false unless you can experience them. And that is what I believe on my path of knowledge, and that's my direct experience. That's what I understand. So making a statement like that would have a major impact on someone who has been, for the last 20 or 30 odd years, strongly tied down to a religious scripture or scriptures. So their feedback will be quite strong. It will be either to discredit your path, or might be to discredit you as a person, or discredit your guru. So it is really, you can see that these 4 steps come into play, depending on how big that impact is, and how that person might see that impact, and then the choice of words they use is really going to be very strong. So we've understood the process of providing feedback. Now let's look at how to provide feedback. There are 4 key steps that take place when providing feedback. So the first thing is maintaining a positive intent to help. We talked about intent before. The intention is really key, because the intention will drive the thoughts, the actions, and also it will somehow translate that intention into the person receiving the feedback becoming positive as well. The second step is those who are on the path of knowledge, or who have realized who they are, who their true self is, they of course understand that there's really this body-mind structure, or this egoic structure, and then there is the experiencer. Everything else is just experiences. So looking at things from an experiencer's perspective or from the self's perspective, the feedback is really about the egoic structure that exists, the body-mind structure that exists, and its actions and behaviors. So even the body-mind structure that exists, we're not providing feedback on that. We are actually providing feedback on the actions and behaviors of that personhood. So having that perspective is really important, because that creates this, that depersonalizes things. It ensures the feedback is very objective, unemotive, and very much focused on actions and behaviors. The third piece is a technique that most people used in the agile methodology. It's the I like, I wonder technique. And what happens in this case is when providing feedback, especially used in brainstorming sessions, we are providing feedback on ideas, and we are providing feedback again here on actions and behaviors, so not really on people themselves. So when providing that feedback, for instance, someone's written a blog on a topic, let's say they've written a topic, blog on desires. So my feedback might go along the lines of, I like the way you have structured your blog. I like the way you have summarized the content in the last 3 lines. And I like the examples that you have given. That's more a positive feedback. There may be areas of improvement in the blog, and so I might construct that in using the I wonder technique. I wonder if you could have provided more examples on how desires are created and how to fulfill your desires, and or potentially how to manage your desires. Now that feedback, when it comes across more focused on the blog itself rather than the person. Instead of saying, I think you've not talked about, you haven't talked about how to manage desires. Instead, if you're using this language of, I wonder if the article might have become better by focusing on managing desires. So that's a softer technique. It is ideal in workplaces, ideal in relationships, personal relationships, where people might get easily offended. There is, of course, the last technique, which is more a dramatization, and that's not necessarily based on emotions or anger. It could be dramatization just to get the right effect. And this is mostly seen when a guru or a master is dramatizing something or feedback so that they can create a bit of a shock in the seeker. It creates, it helps puncture this egoic identity that exists, and shocks the seeker into taking a drastic action in re-looking at themselves and re-looking at their ego. Now, this kind of feedback is really effective in certain circumstances, but it is effective only where you have high degrees of trust, which you might have with your guru, or it may be something that you might have with your parents when you're really young, but perhaps not as you grow older. So those are four key steps around providing feedback. Now let's look at how to receive feedback. Similar to providing feedback, intention is really important. No matter how positive a person providing feedback is in the intent, in the choice of words. It can easily be misinterpreted. For instance, if the person receiving feedback has got a negative intent, he's completely putting up all the defenses, and they are untrusting of what is being provided to them. Similar to providing feedback, important to kind of remember the feedback is on the actions and behaviors of the egoic body-mind structure, or this egoic identity. And those that are self-realized will realize that the feedback is really not about a person. It is about that body-mind structure, and it needs to be taken just like any other feedback would be. And in that state of being aware or self-aware, a person only sees any feedback as a witness, and so that does not have this emotive impact that it might have on some people. This is something that needs to be practiced, obviously. And the other technique that is really I have found useful is, when seeking feedback, clarify, because words can sometimes be misleading when someone is providing feedback, and they could be misconstrued. So ask questions about, what do you mean? Can you give me some examples? I don't understand. Can you reframe it? Can you provide more detail? So the more information you get, the more easy for you to understand. Remember, the next step around the feedback is not, receiving feedback is not only about understanding it, clarifying it, but the most important step of the feedback is to implement it, if it is relevant, obviously. So you need to understand whether it is relevant or not. But once you assess what part of the feedback can be applied, you then want to apply it. And it can only be applied if you have really done the first 4 steps and you've really understood what the feedback is. At times people want to just address the symptom, and that could be a problem if you haven't really done step 4 and really understood what's the root cause that you're trying to fix, as opposed to just applying a band-aid on this. So there we go. We have covered off how to receive feedback. So in summary, there are 3 key things to remember. Feedback is very important for personal growth. It is important in the spiritual context. It is important in the career context, and also in a relationship context as well. And always remember, the feedback is about your actions and behaviors. It is not about you, and certainly not about you as in the self, because even if you were to take it personally, it is still about the egoic body-mind structure. So always depersonalize it when receiving feedback, or when providing feedback. And when providing feedback, be objective, non-emotive, generous. Choose the right words with positive intent. And similarly, when receiving feedback, be curious. Understand what the feedback is, how to apply it, and apply it with positive intent and awareness. That is all for today. Thank you very much.